Okay, hi everyone. Welcome. My name is Maeve Elder and I'm the Communication and Outreach Coordinator here at the Missouri Gateway Green Building Council. I'm excited for you all to join us for this morning's coffee break. We do these short opportunities to connect over a cup of coffee or your morning beverage of choice to discuss hot topics and sustainability with different guests. Before I turn it over to Susan Armstrong, who will introduce our speakers this morning, I wanted to let you all know about our next coffee break that's taking place next Friday, October 20th, and is about sustainable investing. This is the last installment of our three-part series exploring the connection between ESG and green building. I will drop that link in the chat if anyone's interested. Okay, Susan, I'll let you introduce our speakers. Thanks again for organizing this timely discussion.
Thank you so much. Again, this timely hot topic about the flood-prone River Day Pair in University City, which has experienced several flash floods over the years. Today, Robert E. Criss, Professor Emeritus of Earth and Planetary Sciences at Washington University in St. Louis, currently serves on the University City Stormwater Commission. After earning his PhD at Caltech in 1981, he was an isotope geologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, then was Professor of Geology at UC Davis, and has been at University City since 1994. He is the author of Principles of Stable Isotope Distribution and co-editor of several books, including At the Confluence, Rivers, Floods, and River Water Quality in the St. Louis region. Dr. Criss has authored over 150 published papers that encompass many scientific disciplines, but 40 of these concern the hydrogeology of Missouri. Dr. Don Fitz received his PhD in 1974 from the University of Texas at Austin and has published research on social and community psychology in multiple professional journals. Dr. Fitz was a research psychologist for 25 years at St. Louis State Hospital. He has taught environmental psychology at Washington University and Fontbonne University, in addition to many other psychology courses at colleges and universities in the St. Louis area. Dr. Fitz produced the show Green Time in conjunction with KNLC TV in the city of St. Louis for over 20 years. He is on the editorial board of Green Social Thought and is outreach coordinator for the Green Party of St. Louis. Dr. Fitz also serves on the board of University Heights Association. I'm your moderator, Susan Armstrong, professional civil engineer, HSE professional, health, safety, and environmental engineering professional, sustainable business owner, which I think right now means losing money, but so I'll be on next week's coffee break, and a U City resident, part of the Green Build Council Education Committee, and recently appointed, thanks to Bob and Don, appointed to the U City Stormwater Commission by 3rd Ward Councilman Smotherson. Dr. Criss.
Yes, thanks very much. I want to get underway and just share my screen immediately and discuss the recent flash flood and what we've been doing about it. So the question is, what happened in last July in 2022, and what has the community done and the University City itself, what needs to be done and what is planned. So I want to go through these things quickly, but the flood was horrific. People woke up early on July 26th to see this. This particular shot was taken in University City well before 6 in the morning, and it didn't start raining hard until 1 o'clock in the morning, and this is what happened to people's neighborhoods as soon as they woke up. Now, so what's been done? The immediate responses were very impressive. Alerts were posted by the National Weather Service and also at least online by our U City flood warning system, but it was not interfaced to go out very broadly, unfortunately. The first responders did a magnificent job of helping people out. The fire department especially, but also the police department handled over 50 rescues that really saved some lives. There were additional rescues by citizen Samaritans. There are a lot of very helpful news reports that were quite timely. The event just in the next few days was documented very heavily by people on the City Stormwater Commission that took a lot of photos, conducted interviews. The late Eric Stein and I did an extensive flood mark survey that lasted the next couple months. This City put out a lot of inspections and posted over 300 condemnation notices on homes. And post-flood, there was a horrific mess. There's a lot of flooded homeowners that really worked hard, but the City Solid Waste Management Division, our trash collectors, really worked hard. There were just streets were just lined with debris that had to all be thrown away because it was floodwater contaminated. Metrolink was heavily disrupted as elevators were broken. And the Heman Park pool was decommissioned for nearly a year. Both those things are now up and running almost at pre-flood conditions. Longer term responses, the early warning system that Eric Stein and I helped develop is now fully operational, and it's interfaced. The warnings go right to the fire department, and if conditions warrant and our warnings are seen to be real, they go out on code red. Now anybody can look at the system right now for using this link here. That's just our warning system, but the code red thing is separate, but you can sign up for it through the city website. The Army Corps is planning a detention basin in Overland, which will help with City flooding. The city has hired stormwater consultants who are finalizing their report. Impervious surface codes are finally being considered by the city to become stronger than what we have on the books now. And this is due to a lot of effort by the City Environmental Law Clinic, but also the University Heights neighborhood has really been pushing this along. An inundation map was published by Eric Stein and myself, and I've just submitted a paper on our stormwater submission system, our warning system, for publication. So those things will be available in short order. The inundation map is already published. The city engaged a lobbying firm to help with getting federal funds. FEMA approved a buyout of the Hafner Court apartments. I think the city has underachieved here, and they did not involve the Stormwater Commission with their proposals. But at least the Hafner Court apartments that have been a site of repeated damage have an approved buyout now. Eric Stein and I, with the Stormwater Commission, have set up several high watermark signs. You can see one here. This is the rain gauge #1 in our flood warning system. There's a high watermark sign right on Wilson Avenue. This driveway to nowhere is where a home once stood and has been bought out. And finally, I conducted, with help from our Public Works Director, Girdler at City, helped arrange all this. But we had a channel and tunnel inspection tour, and Bryce Gray with the Post-Dispatch wrote a very helpful series of reports. That's put enough pressure on MSD and the city that the debris on the Hanley and Groby bridges has been cleared, and the tunnel debris in the tunnel is going to be cleared in December. City needs to do more. We need a website, a lecture series, a library shelf. This has been on the books for 4 years, and it's still not been done. Until that's done, the best source of information is my own website on St. Louis floods run through WashU. City and MSD need a plan for channel maintenance. The city needs to strengthen building codes and needs to implement something along the lines of the proposals by the Law Clinic and University Heights neighborhood. We need disclosures of flood history for rentals and buying. City inspectors need a protocol to collect property information after floods and to establish a database on condemned and damaged properties. And they should issue a contract for surveying first floor elevations. Finally, the future, we always got to realize that flood problems are of our own making. We got to stop aggravating the problem with increased impervious surfaces and putting stuff in the wrong place. And in my view, buyouts are the best long-term strategy. I'll turn it over to Don Fitz.
I just have a comment as a moderator. Do you want to go back one slide, Bob, for a human interest story? So if you buy a property and it's flooding, you still have to pay your rent. If the sewer's backing up, you still have to pay your sewer bill. So that's, as the person or the family who lives in those rented properties or home purchased it in a flood zone, it's significant. Thank you so much, Bob, for bringing that to attention. Go ahead, Don.
Okay, my name's Don Fitz. I've worked on environmental issues since about 1990, but I never paid a lot of attention to floods until our home was that we had just bought was devastated on July the 26th, 2022, and we had to spend tens of thousands of dollars, and I lost an enormous library that I had. So we got together with our neighborhood association. I'm on the board, and we formed a flood task force to deal with the issues. So we started to have several webinars, which the first one featured Bob Criss. Then we had others with other specialists, people talking about various issues. Like our most recent discussion group was on trees and how trees can help break up soil and make the soil more pervious to absorb more water. So we created the Flood Task Force in January of this year. And what we had was two tasks, one of which was to work on an impervious surface bill, which was inspired by Bob Criss in order to reduce the amount of cement and asphalt in University City. And then our second task was to have a flood discussion group, so we would continue the discussions that we started. We very quickly realized we had a third task that people in the neighborhood wanted to hear about, and that was to reduce the debris, which is right in front of the tunnel where the River de Pere goes underground, and where we believe that the debris slowed down the water so much that it contributed heavily to the flooding. We did a very good film showing of a sewer runs through it, a history of the River de Pere in March, where we could, when we reached 100 people registering for it, we reached 160 people registering for it. We realized that we couldn't handle more than 100. And so we had to have a second film showing, and together the two had about 160 people working on that. The program that as the year anniversary of the flood happened, we had a program that again included Bob Criss, Darren Girdler, who's the University City Director of Public Works, Brian Holscher, who's the Executive Director of MSD, our State Senator, Brian Williams, and Danielle Stradley, who's a representative of, who is the designee of U.S. Representative Cori Bush. We also had Jeff Hales from University City Council. And so one of the things that happened from that was that people really wanted to push MSD to clear up the debris. And so what we got 100 people signing onto a letter asking for information, about when would you clear the debris. And so at long last, he finally responded they planned to clear out the debris. But what he did not include in his response was a schedule for continuing to clear out the debris. And so what we have is a one-time promise that's supposed to start this December. And then everybody, of course, will forget, news only stays in people's minds for a few months at most. And then people forget about it. And of course, there could be another flood next year, in 5 years, and 20 years, and with no schedule for regularly cleaning out the debris. A one-time affair does not really contribute a whole lot. So what we're really pushing on, or what I think is a long-term goal that we should be working towards, is having a large area for waters, but not retention ponds, but a green space, a greenway, in University City. I talk about removing all the concrete from River de Pere with members of the Stormwater Commission, and I talked to Eric Stein, who was said, well, you don't need to remove all the concrete. There's many areas in University City, and together they might have there might be enough water absorbed, or places to basically function as retention ponds, plus being the usable space. And we never got around to finishing that discussion because unfortunately Eric died about a month ago. So my synopsis of where we're at with University City can be summed up with the statement, 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards, and 10 steps sideways. Our step forward is we're making good progress with University City Council in terms of the impervious surface. I was just working on that this morning before it started. We're working with the Stormwater Commission and with the attorneys at Washington University Environmental Law Clinic to get that passed. And I think we have a very good chance of getting that passed. Unfortunately, the only thing that bill would do, it would stop things from going backwards. In other words, if people build something like a driveway, then they would have to offset the amount of water. All that does is to stop things from getting worse. And it seems like University City is themselves making things worse by putting cement up everywhere. I mean, every time I look around, there's a new cement project in University City of creating more impervious surfaces. So if people say, well, is your bill at least make slight improvements over the next few years? I'm very skeptical. Go back. Now, the 10 steps sideways, which I think is really important, is that University City is doing absolutely nothing. You know, a year and several months after the flood, there's these enormous areas of concrete. And of course, the worst one is by the Mandarin restaurant. You've probably heard of Seafood City on the news. If you drive by that area, you see this enormous expansion of concrete. And so University City has done absolutely nothing to reduce that concrete and make it absorb. There's many other places where University City could have dealt with impervious concrete and asphalt and has not done so. And so this is what the Green Building Council could do for me and the Storm Flood Task Force, which would really be helpful. And that is, if we could have some sort of estimate, you know, of the amount of water that fell on July 26, 2022, and some sort of estimate of how much water would be absorbed. If Bob, Criss, and Eric Stein took us on a tour where we looked at multiple areas in University City where the land could be lowered, you could use it dual purpose as a retention basin, and you have usable space, whether it's for sports fields, hiking, urban gardens, whatever. You know, and the rate of flow of the water. Would a green space actually work? And what ways? In other words, we don't want an entertainment pavilion that is called a greenway. We would like, you know, a real greenway, which means an area which is used, you know, which does not have where you can't really walk through. I mean, you can walk through on trails, but you can't have businesses there. And so, if anybody on the Green Building Council wants to work with us, you know, we would love, you know, to have information, love to have feedback. I'm only a minute over, and that was pretty good. I usually got like 10 minutes over.
Thank you, Don. And one of the things that Dr. Fitz and his task force, neighborhood task force, is working on, I was able to, you know, bring it up. So I'll share it with the audience. They're, you know, drafting an index based on a lot of the resources from EPA or the Missouri Botanical Gardens. So Emily, that's you all's work regarding greening up University City. So we're looking to make it more green. We're looking more trees, installing permeable pavements, building green roofs, something Kansas City has already worked through, installing rain barrels. So this initiative is also to engage the residents in greening up their properties to prevent flooding, to slow down the floodwaters. Do we have any comments or questions? I think we're all in agreement here. Anna, do you have any questions?
I do.
Nicole, please.
Hi, Nicole Adiwale, and I'm also a resident of University City, longtime resident. Um, I heard you. I'm pleased to hear about the warning system and some of the other things that are put in place now. A friend of mine lives on Dartmouth, right behind the River de Pere, and her house was completely flooded. Like she said, it was flooded up to a foot on her floor, so her whole basement was submerged. And fortunately, they got out safely, but with very little warning. And when we're talking about greenways, the back of her yard, faces the river. Is there anything for University Heights that is going to be done to provide some natural barriers? Can you talk a little bit more about some of those opportunities to improve? And also, I live near Britton Woods, and there's a family that my daughter used to go to school with. If you know, right there at that bridge on Grovey, coming down the hill, the last house on the west side has been flooded so many times. So what is their assistance for getting rid of some of these properties that are just continually prone to flood?
Well, let me address that, or at least take the first crack. I think buyouts are the best way, and the city should be pursuing a long-term strategy, particularly for these areas, to buy the homes out. Now, FEMA is not going to come in and buy hundreds of homes. We have at least
Right.
have. I think we have a dozen homes that I would call the neediest cases that we should really prioritize. And a couple of those are right near the Grovey Bridge. Others are right on Yale and where Yale and Dartmouth are. And I will say, in partial answer to your question, MSD is planning a major overhaul of the tunnel or the channel between the Pennsylvania Avenue Bridge and the tunnel entrance. And golly, I think people should be looking at that and what they plan, and they're not sharing a lot of plans with the Stormwater Commission.
Thank you.
Respond to that. Other people, if you're not from University City, you might not realize it, but the Grovey Bridge area that you're talking about, Nicole, is the same thing as the Mandarin restaurant, the 11 acres of concrete, because all of the water over that huge area of concrete flowed down and actually drove out our council person, Tim Kusick, who was totally freaked out at losing his valuable library, that he left the city council, packed up, and moved to Arizona. And so I totally agree with Bob that the number one thing is buyouts, but 11 acres of concrete, let's get serious. That stuff needs to be broken up. It needs to be at least turned into ground that absorbs water. And we need some people from the Green Building Council and the Stormwater Commission to analyze that and to say, can you dig that area up and turn it? Here's a space which is not being used. Could that absorb enough water where it could seriously stop the flood downstream? Where your friend lives on Dartmouth, who's probably a neighbor of mine, because I live on Dartmouth.
Selena McGinnis.
Oh yeah, I know Selena. She's very active in University City politics for years. And so, Nicole, since you said you knew Selena and you're worried about this problem, did I take that as an offer to help develop the plans for a greenway in University City to reduce this flooding problem? Is that what I heard?
I would like to engage, but I own Abner Engineering, which actually MSD is a client, but we certainly can talk offline. And let me be clear, when you say break up the concrete, so you're talking about you're not talking about the lining of the channel. You're talking about this, like, for instance, the strip mall where Seafood City was?
Yes.
Yeah.
What I was talking about, I originally had the idea of breaking out the concrete all from the point source where the River de Pere begins. And Eric Stein explained to me months ago, he said, Don, no, that's not realistic. And not only that, you don't need to do it. If you break up the concrete and dig areas out, you have enough water overflow in University City. Possibly you would need to go to Olivet, but it can be done without having a complete greenway all across the River de Pere, which is not realistic because there's too many businesses and major streets. And so
Right.
we never got to finish that analysis.
And I'll just say this, I'm sorry, just one last idea, and I don't want to disrupt the whole thing, but we did some work years ago for the botanical garden. So, and Emily knows this, the parking lot that's there, there's a lot of, what's the word I'm trying to say, for the kind of pavement that absorbs.
Pervious.
Yeah, pervious pavement, that may be something else that could be, because especially that area, which you're right, is not being used, is right next to the river. I think we could do some things with some pervious pavement along that area that sound great. But I appreciate appreciate the opportunity to speak. And as you see, I have a personal connection to all of this. So thank you so much.
Sure, Nicole, thank you. And it sounds to me there's a lot of funding sources, a lot of oversight, MSD, Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and then the local resident organizations. There, I put a link in the chat, an organization called DPAVE, and I heard about it from a woman on an equitable resilience call, where they're depaving an individual, volunteers depaving Nashville. So of all the different oversight organizations and funding sources, again, we have an opportunity. I mean, like Don had mentioned, if they do eminent domain on large pieces of unused impervious pavement, that might be another way forward to green up University City.
I love the idea of a DPAVE U City initiative that would be like resident, and community led. You could work with all the schools and churches and, and get them taking advantage of the opportunities to do rainscaping, like through the work that Anna and her team do at the garden. That sounds like fun.
Okay, well, we have our flood discussion group, the fourth Wednesday of the month, the fourth Wednesday in October. I'm trying to set up a program with DPAVE Portland, which Susan had discussed. And so I will send this to Maeve, and hopefully if we get it set up, and hopefully Maeve could send it out to Green Building Council, because a program at 7:30 Wednesday night should not conflict with your coffee breaks. 10 o'clock on Friday morning.
I'd be happy
Well,
to-
yeah, and we have a lot of members that live in that area too, that, so I might kind of specifically think about some folks we might tap to get engaged if they aren't already.
Okay, so green building, I take it, does not necessarily mean putting up a structure with more concrete, but it could be designing a greenway and ways to divert water, perhaps down into the ground and not into people's homes.
Stormwater management and rainwater management is a big part of the LEED rating system. So definitely it's an important piece of the puzzle.
So I'll look for a dozen volunteers from the Green Building Council.
Have you guys talked to the Brentwood Bound folks? Yeah, okay, good.
And there's divergent opinions on that. There's some people who think Brentwood Bound went totally the wrong direction, and other people who thoroughly denounce that and say, no, Brentwood Bound worked with all the interested parties and did a great job. So if you want to start a civil war and people who are looking for green projects, Brentwood Bound is a really great place to see people get mad at each other.
I want to thank Don, and I want to thank Dr. Fitz and Dr. Criss for their community organizing. which has given so much voice to the residents, such that the city council hears them, such that the state legislature hears them. So really, you gentlemen have done amazing work. Thank you.
Okay, hope to see everybody again.
Thank you so
for
much.
joining us and sharing this information. It's a conversation like many of our coffee breaks that can continue after the 30 minutes. So hope we find ways to continue the conversation.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.